Well, good day to you. It is September the 2nd, and you know what that means. If you're in the Philippines right now and it is September 2nd, you are already starting to hear Christmas music in the malls. You're already starting to see garland put up in people's homes, perhaps even Christmas trees, because this is the start of the Christmas season, actually, for them. It's the funniest thing. I was there a few years back, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Because in September, it's about 100 degrees outside, and the humidity is about 100%, and you're walking in the mall in Manila, and you're hearing it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. It's the funniest thing. But anyway, I love those people. They're great. But yes, it is Christmas season in the Philippines. But anyway, my name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs, and just point out that if you are new to this information and you want to know more, you, of course, can listen to as many videos that I put up as you want. Go crazy. But you can also read about it and take somebody else's word for it too, and read more about it by checking out some of the links that I provided in the description portion of these videos. Links like the Share International site, you can get a lot of really good information. And then you can go back and you can look at YouTube and see people who are totally against this information. And then you can kind of weigh it for yourself and see what's true for you. You know, the other thing too that I don't really talk about, because more and more information is coming out about UFOs, right? And it's coming out from governments all around the world, you know, governments such as the United States, that I thought 15, 20 years ago, the United States would be the last government to ever come out and say that they had information about UFOs. I got to be honest with you, I've been so surprised over the last few years about this. But more and more information is coming out in mainstream media about what the United States knows about UFOs and some of the experiences that they have with UFOs. It's crazy. But here's the thing, you know, and then you go on YouTube or you go on Facebook Reels or whatever like that, or, you know, you go on, you know, watch these videos and so forth. And a lot of it is a fear mongering because people really don't know why they are here, right? And since most people are scared of their own shadow, they mask their fear in so many other ways, aggression or machismo, I guess, or whatever they want to do, but they're fearful of their own shadow. Let's just be honest about it. So why wouldn't they be scared of UFOs is kind of my view on it. But if you go into the description portion of these videos, there's a link to the George Adamski website. George Adamski had a lot of information about what he called the Space Brothers. He never called them aliens. He never called them, you know, anything extraterrestrials. He called them Space Brothers. Said they look like us, very normal in their appearance and so forth, but here to help us. And they're here on a spiritual mission. Actually, is what he said. Had a lot of detail about flying in their ships and the detail of the inside of these spaceships, and quite extraordinary information. And then, if you can even go on the Share International site and hear Ben's take on it if you want, and you'll get a different perspective of UFOs and why they're here and the spiritual mission that they're here and why they're here. So might give you a little bit more hope and maybe less fear about them and so forth. So hopefully you'll look into it. They're all there for you whenever you want to look into it. They're all free. Now, if you want to come back and join the discussion, of course, you can post your comments. You can post your questions in the comments section. You can even email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. But I did have a question that I get quite often, and it's coming from @MariesPaz810. When will Maitreya appear? Will it be very soon? So I appreciate your question. Let's dive on into it. Now, I'm going to start by answering it sarcastically, but truthfully, actually. You asked, will it be soon? When will Maitreya appear? Will it be soon? It's actually so soon it's already happened. Benjamin Creme made the announcement in January of 2010 that Maitreya had already made his first appearance on American television. And since then, while Benjamin Creme was alive, would announce in Share International magazine, this country, that Maitreya had already appeared. And it was getting to add up after a while. And so I don't know if Maitreya has kept the same rhythm of television appearances or if it's slowed down a little bit. I have no idea. But it's not going to stop. And so even if he's not speaking on TV right now, at this moment in time, it doesn't mean that it won't happen again, because the cat is already out of the bag. Pandora's already out of her box, if you whatever metaphor you want to use, because it can't be put back. The Lord of Love is already starting to awaken humanity's hearts, and it's already begun. Now, I think a better question would be to ask yourself, when will I recognize him? Or when will all of humanity recognize him? Because Maitreya is not claiming to be Maitreya. So here's a little cheat sheet for everybody. If you are ever one that just, you have to do it and you want to scour the internet looking for a Maitreya, I don't advise doing that, because Maitreya himself said, once you chase after him, you've already lost him. But anyway, but let's just say you want to go crazy and look for Maitreya, and you come across some videos or whatever of people claiming to be Maitreya. They are not Maitreya. Guaranteed. If they claim to be Jesus come back, they are not Maitreya. If they claim to be the Imam Mahdi, they're not come back. The Imam Mahdi, they are not Maitreya. If they claim to be any kind of spiritual avatar or any kind of spiritual authority, they are not Maitreya. Because Maitreya is not claiming to be any one of those things. And so he will not claim to those names until the day of declaration. He will never claim to be a spiritual authority, I'm sure of that. But he has said, because Ben had made some, he was telling an instance where somebody was asking Maitreya, they thought he might have been the Imam Mahdi, because they were living in the Asian community of London along with him. And people were starting to suspect that he might be the Imam Mahdi, which is one of the awaited teachers. That's what the Muslims are waiting to come back. So are you the Imam Mahdi? I'm sorry, the Mahdi's not coming back like Jesus. They're waiting for him to come. But anyway, so they asked him, are you the Imam Mahdi? And Maitreya says, well, if I'm the Imam Mahdi for the Muslims, then what about the Christ for the Christians or the Messiah for the Jews? He goes, these are just names. These are human-made names. But they create confusion within the minds of men. So he said, I just prefer to be known as a teacher. And that's all he is, really, is a teacher. Now, he's a teacher in the broadest sense. But even my third grade piano teacher, Mrs. Cook, can make the claim that she's a teacher. So it's nothing extraordinary to be a teacher, per se. He is an extraordinary teacher, but it's nothing extraordinary to be looked at as a teacher, I guess is a better way of saying it. And that's all he is. He's not coming as a religious leader. He's not coming to create a new religion. He's not doing any of that stuff. So he's not going to claim he is any of those things. The only thing he would probably say is those are names that he's looked to by people or referred to. But he is not going to even say that until the day of declaration happens, which is a ways off. And then he's going to say it at the same time for everybody to hear it, and then we will all know at the same time that that's Maitreya. We might be suspicious that this person is Maitreya. We might go, yeah, I put money on it, that's him, but we won't know for sure. Now, I have no authority to say this because I'm not an authority on anything. I can only guess too, okay? But I would be willing to bet you anyone, such as yourself, Maurice Paz, 810, whoever you happen to be, wherever you happen to live, anybody who has listened to this information and is interested enough to take it a step further and read more about it, or listen to this information and go, yeah, I could kind of get that, or listen to this information and go, I want to know more and ask a question, or listen to this information and be totally, triggered and against it and take the time to post a comment about how much they hate what I have to say. I would be willing to bet you have already seen Maitreya, whether it's in your own life or on TV, and just did not recognize him. I would almost bet any amount of money that that's true. If Ben was alive, I would have asked him. But I do think that that's true. And so you probably have already seen him and not recognized him, is my point. Because when he appears in people's lives, like I have seen him, like thousands of other people have seen him, he can appear as a man or woman, any gender, any age, any body type, any racial makeup. It could be anything. Look however he wants to look. And it's Maitreya. And it's up to that person to recognize that that is a manifestation of Maitreya. Now, the way he appears on TV is how he's going to look. But he obviously does not look how people think he's going to look. And this is the other thing. He's obviously not talking and speaking in a way that's indicating to people that it could be Maitreya, because people are looking very hard for him. Okay? So that's my take on it. Now, the other thing is, Maitreya is very adept at speaking very simply. In fact, so simply that people usually miss it. So if you look at something very simple in the Bible that Maitreya said through Jesus, what you sow shall you reap. He was talking about the law of cause and effect. He wasn't talking about how to farm, although Jesus was talking to farmers, and that's how they could understand what he was talking about. But if you fast forward to today, how many ministers devote an entire service or an entire career to that truth? I think if you took everything away in the Bible and you just focused on that one thing, what you sow shall you reap, and applied it to your life, it would change your life in a way that it would be incredible. It would absolutely metamorphosize who you are as a person for the best, especially if you started to live within that law. But it's so simple, it's not even talked about in churches. It's not talked about in Sunday school classes. I've never once heard a pastor talk about it in a Southern Baptist church, ever. And I've gone hundreds of times to churches in my life, and I've never once heard it. But yet, it's there. So he can speak a truth very simply to somebody on TV, and it would have the same kind of effect, where it could, for those who are ready to hear it, it would knock their socks off. It would knock them right over the head. Other people who perhaps aren't open to that truth yet, it would go right past them. You know, the other thing too that I'll say, they're kind of to share kind of what I also think happens where people don't recognize him. I had two Maitreya experiences. One where I actually saw him in person. The other one, I didn't see him in person, but he wrote a message before I knew anything about this information. And I could have seen him in other instances and not recognized him too, because when I saw him in the third grade, I was eating with my classmates. I was eating lunch with my classmates in the cafeteria. And he appeared as a kid about the same age as me. And he came up and gave me this huge hug right in front of all my friends and started swinging me back and forth in my chair, saying how much he loved me. He goes, my brother, I missed you so much. I love you so much. Never seen this kid before in my life. And I pushed him away. All my friends were laughing at me and making fun of me in this process. And I said something rude to him. I called him an octopus, which isn't really that mean, I guess. But I was trying to be as mean as I possibly could because I was embarrassed, right? And then I felt bad, and I tried to find him, and I could never find him because he was no longer in that school at that point. So I never, for years, I mean, I looked for him for quite a bit of time and never saw him after that. But I never once thought that there was anything out of this world extraordinary or spiritual about that interaction between that young boy and myself. Never once. But yet that one experience, now that I look back on it, it changed my life. You know what I'm saying? So I never talked about it with my family. I never brought it up with people later on in my life. It wasn't until I came across this information and started to research this for myself that I thought back and I remember that experience, and I was like, oh my God. But it happened probably, I guess at that point, probably 10 or 12 years before I had heard this information. And then when I was, right before I stumbled across this information, I was touring in Japan. And people started to ask me for my autograph, and I started signing it with a peace sign and a heart and a happy face. And when I came back to Atlanta, got lost because I was new to Atlanta at the time, was driving in a part of town that I hadn't really been in at that time. Now I go by there all the time. And written on a payphone, because I was lost, I had pulled into this gas station to make a call, and written on the payphone, it said, to Gary, a heart sign, a peace sign, and a happy face. It says, still alive and well, and there was a cross, and it was signed the Christ. And you would think that it would just blown my socks off. But yet, what I remember exactly what I thought when I read the message on the phone. I said, who's Gary? He signs his name just like I did in Japan. With the heart and peace. So that's what I thought to myself. I mean, even though it was signed the Christ right there in front of me, I never once thought that for a second that it was anything extraordinary. Didn't bring it up to anybody, nothing. It wasn't until I read this information, started to inquire about it, that I thought back about that. I was like, oh my gosh, it was right there the whole time. Never thought about it. And so more and more people will probably have that same experience. Once Maitreya is known in their life to be who he is, that they will think back and go, oh my gosh, it was that was that homeless guy that smiled at me, and I was just about to, go off the deep end of my life, and this guy smiles at me, and I felt this wave of love, and it changed my life, and I never thought anything of it. That was Maitreya. That's what they're going to have. That's the experiences that thousands upon, maybe even millions of people are going to have. So, I mean, I can go on and on and on about it like that. But anyway, that's what I think is really going on. So it's not a question of when will he appear, but when will we recognize him? And a lot of us will recognize him at different times than others. And it's important to not mention it to anybody else and just keep it to yourself. But we will all know for sure and for certain on the day of declaration. But I will leave you with this one thing that Maitreya did say to me, okay? And I'm sharing it with you because he wasn't saying it specifically to me. He was saying it to everybody. He said, I saw him on the street one time. He was a young man, and he was talking about a lot of different things, a lot of things that have changed my life when I applied them. Like one thing he said was, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And I applied that to my life, and it's changed my life for the better. But the one thing he did say that is apropos to this conversation, he goes, you listening? He goes, you're going to see me on TV real soon, and we are going to change the world together. I love you guys. Thank you very much for the questions, and I look forward to putting up videos in the future. You guys take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.